Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the live reaction show today with myself, Steve Wyss, and I'm joined by James Eastham. This time we've got the microphone working, we've got the video working. James, no problems. How are you this fine Sunday?
Yeah, good, Steve. Great to be back on the show. And obviously, as you know, some of the viewers will know my specialism is France League One. We've had some great games in that division today. We've got one going on at the moment, so plenty to talk about, I think, in this show today.
Lots to talk about. It's been a bit of a crazy Sunday. I've been watching soccer from all around the globe today. There's been all sorts of madness going on. First thing to say is Premier League, Arsenal against Manchester City, 0-0 after half an hour at the Emirates Stadium. There has been chances at both ends. There was a ridiculous goalkeeping moment from David Raya. I don't like this Arsenal merry-go-round with goalkeepers, and I think it puts pressure on them. I think it showed there. But it is 0-0 at the Emirates. The goal line in running is 1.5. Arsenal plus 200, Man City plus 175. The ties at plus 175. Really tough game to call at the moment, that one, I must say. 15 minutes till half-time. I'll probably give an opinion about that game then. And in France, it is at half-time. Lens against Lille, big derby du Nord, and a goal against the run of play just before half-time, James, here. No one really saw this one coming. Lens were dominating the match. Thoughts on this one so far? Lille minus 163.
Yeah, Lille 1-0 up. They scored just before half-time through Benjamin Andre. You're right, Steve. Lens were all over them in the first half. Massive derby in the north of France is being played at Lens. There are no Lille fans allowed today. They're banned to avoid crowd trouble. So everything looked like it was in Lens's favour. And you're right, the first 35 minutes they were dominant, but Lille have got the goal just before half-time. Should say also on that game, Ligue, who people have seen score against Arsenal in the Champions League in midweek, is on the bench today for Lens. If they continue to be 1-0 down, I think we'll see him in the second half.
This has been a feisty game, as you'd expect. These two sides hate each other. Let's just put it out there. It is one of the fiercely contested derbies in France. Just 2 yellow cards so far. I'm expecting that to go higher in the second half. I don't know if anyone can get card lines in running. Some books will be offering, I think, the card line's about 5.5. Is this the sort of fixture where you could see a red card in the second half, do you think, James?
Yeah, definitely. We've already had incidents in the first half, Steve, haven't we? There was a moment earlier in the game where Jonathan David, the Lille striker, was pushed off the pitch and banged his head. The game was held up for about 5 minutes and lots of argy-bargy. I think so. I think we'll see plenty of tough tackles and challenges in the second half. So, yeah, if the card line was available, I'd expect more cards rather than fewer.
It's been a crazy day in France. We've had Lyon with 3-1 up, and Lorient came back to draw 3-3. We've had an abandonment in Montpellier, 4-2. Montpellier were leading with about a minute left, and then stupidly one of their fans hit or came close to hitting the Clermont goalkeeper Maurice Dior with a firecracker, which has led to some bizarre incidents there. I say the match is abandoned. There's been goals everywhere in the Premier League. We have a couple of 2-2 draws. A lot of debate about the over-under in that Brighton game earlier in the Premier League. Well, it's the over-backers who are cashing in that one. But France Ligue 1 today, this is your specialist area, James. Just thoughts on today. I didn't really see this glutton of goals coming overall, did you?
No, I didn't see the goals that we've had today coming. Marseille started the day with a 3-0 win against Le Havre. That is a massive result for Marseille going into the international break. Gennaro Gattuso came in as the manager there a couple of weeks ago. That's his first win. So very good day for Marseille. Very bad day for Lyon. As you've said, Steve, they've drawn 3-3 today at home to Lorient. Fabio Grosso is the manager there. He came in about the same time as Gattuso at Marseille a couple of weeks ago. Lyon are still looking for their first win under Fabio Grosso. So interesting results. The goals is a separate thing, really. I didn't see that coming either. But I think in terms of setting teams up for how they're going to be during this international break, good day for Marseille, bad day for Lyon, you have to say.
Yeah, certainly it was a very comfortable win for Marseille early. I'm starting to get a bit worried about Le Havre, I must say. I think the last 2 weeks, they are really starting to struggle. This match in Lens, I've just had a look at the Asian handicap lines in running. And you know what catches my eye here is to back Lens on a minus 0.25 Asian handicap from the 0-1 position. So if they win the second half, you would cash your bet. And if the second half ends a draw, you would only lose half. That looks a generous handicap, I think, from this position. I don't know what you think. I think Lens were the better team in that half.
Yeah, I would take that. I would certainly take that on the second half, Steve. Watching the game, as we both were first half, the better team. And as I say, they do have Eli Wahi on the bench here to come on. Now, he is, we think, carrying a slight ankle injury. So it's not just rotation that has put him on the bench. I don't think he's fully fit. But I think there's more to come from Lens in front of goal in this second half because, they look the more dangerous side. So, yeah, of the two, on the second half, I would be backing Lens rather than Lille.
Yeah, I certainly would as well. And I'm just looking at this Arsenal-Man City game because I know there's a lot of people out there who would be looking at a bet. Manchester City, it's not often you get them at plus 175 after 35 minutes in the game when they're drawing. And that will stand out to a few people. It's been such an even game, though. I've always sensed that this match may well end in a draw. And I think the draw at plus 162, gun to my head right now, I wouldn't be staking big on this to anyone out there who is watching. But I think the tie or the draw on Arsenal against Manchester City could be worth having a look at there. Who was your money on in this game pre-match, James? Arsenal, Man City?
Pre-match, it's difficult to say. My view on this game was simply that City would be quite happy just to avoid defeat here. I know that sounds like it's not a very Man City Pep Guardiola approach to a game, but, they're in a great position at the top of the table. This is a tough match. We know the gap between these two teams has closed over the last 12 months in terms of pure quality. I'm not surprised it's as close as you said it is because on paper, I don't think there's a huge amount between the two teams actually who've been picked today. My view was I would never back against City. I was not interested in siding with Arsenal here to win the game, but I did think that we would see City avoid defeat, certainly.
Will White, the professional bettor himself, I presume that's the Will White, unless it's an alias. James, what were your bets this week in Ligue 1? We know one of them, James, because you were on Mets in the Instagram parlay that we did. So I presume they were one of them, James.
Yes, I was on. So Mets Nice, I thought was a great pick this weekend. I was on Nice here to win the game at Mets, which they did. They won 1-0. I don't know if you saw the prices on that game, Steve. Nice were 1.8. In decimals, when I saw it to win the game, they were about 1.6. Yeah, they got backed in. I thought it was a real mismatch. Nice are dark horses for me in League One this season. I'm on them from our Bet Rivers show pre-season, Steve, to finish top in the winner without PSG market. So, yeah, my main bet was on Nice to win this weekend. My second bet is actually on the game that I think we're going to come on to anyway, Steve, tonight, which is the Rennes versus PSG game, which is a massive match. I'm happy to back against PSG here, looking at the prices. So that game is yet to be played. It's coming up in 2.5 hours, something like that. Arguably the big game of the weekend in France because it's PSG. My second bet will be opposing PSG in that game at Rennes tonight.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that game in a minute because we've got you on the show, James, the reaction show. There's going to be a lot of people interested, either watching live or on demand, about PSG. There's going to be a lot of questions about PSG, and I suppose even my own self. In the last week, they have not kicked on as I expected them to. They were held by Clermont last week. Yes, they came up against a good goalkeeping performance, but you still should be beating Clermont Foot, home or away, and then at St James's Park. Now, I've got to be honest, that match completely shocked me. In terms of the pre-match actual odds, because I personally had PSG as I thought they were deserved to be favourites in that particular game. In fact, before the match, they became a plus 0.25 dog, and I had a nibble. Secondly, the actual performance. Now, look, if Newcastle winning wouldn't have been a surprise to me. It's just the fashion, the manner in that they beat them, because they were completely dominated. 4-1 was a fair result, really, on the night, I thought. What is going on with PSG? Because on paper, man for man, I looked at the 11s there. There's probably only a couple of spots where Newcastle were superior. So this shouldn't be happening. What are the issues that PSG dealing with this season? What are your thoughts on them in general under Luis Enrique, and what went wrong at St James's Park?
Yeah, well, I've revised my thoughts a little bit on PSG after that game and been a bit more objective, really, because like you, I quite liked what I'd seen from them in League One so far. They've had a couple of really impressive performances. Then I looked at it again and I thought, who have they actually beaten in League One? You know, who have they actually beaten? They faced some pretty weak teams. When they face better teams, they've not necessarily done well. So I've had a bit of a revision in my head about them. I think the problems specifically on that Newcastle game first, Steve, I think Luis Enrique has to take some of the blame here. I think tactically, this plan he's got of occasionally playing what is essentially a 4-2-4 rather than a 4-3-3 makes no sense to me whatsoever. We've seen him do it a couple of times now. Yes, it's worked in League One, but I don't think it's a smart idea to play 4 purely attacking players against good European sides. He seems to like this 4-2-4 idea, which essentially sees Bradley Barcola, one of their big summer signings, come in and Kylian Mbappe sort of move to play as a second centre forward. I think it's madness to play with 2 midfielders in a big European game away from home. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, and this is more of a long-term issue, I now have some doubts about whether he's actually got the players at PSG to play the type of football that he wants to play. You know, we know he wants them to press high up the pitch. We've seen them do it really well in a couple of games in League One. But I think what the Newcastle game showed us is that if they go toe-to-toe with a good European side who are going to press just as much as they are, they're probably going to come off second best. And I think that is the issue. I think the issue is, can they play the sort of football that he wants them to play, which is having as much possession as possible and then pressing hard repeatedly for 90 minutes when they lose the ball. It will work in League One because you don't have that many teams of that quality, and they can probably press as well as anybody in League One anyway if they put their mind to it. But I think at this elite level, what we saw against Newcastle is that there are some disparities between what he wants to do and the sort of players he's got in that squad. So I was concerned, I've got to say, by that defeat against PSG. It's put me in 2 minds really about how far they can go in this competition and what they'll do actually in the rest of the group stage. Because let's not forget, Steve, that is a tough group they're in. You know, not getting out of the group would be a disaster. And after that defeat, I think there's some questions about that at the moment. So let's not look too far ahead because they've got to get out of the group first.
I agree with you, and I'm the same with you. That one result and performance has made me reassess. I've had to really have a good deep dive because I'm not often that far wrong in football, but I was that night. And you know, we had on the the Champions League outright show, Will White was actually on there, and he ranked PSG 12th overall in Europe, and you know, I think that sort of statement caused a bit of a stir amongst not just those that was on the show, but a few on Twitter and stuff. Well, maybe he's right. Maybe they aren't that good because that performance, I mean, 12th actually makes them look generous.
Yes.
You know, it was, but I agree with you. I mean, the tactical element, I mean, one of the edges you would have had PSG, Luis Enrique against Eddie Howe, you would have said that PSG have got the managerial tactical edge, the experience edge, but Eddie Howe completely outcoached him. Yeah. I mean, that shouldn't really, you wouldn't expect it to happen. Nothing against Eddie Howe. You wouldn't expect that to happen, but he did nothing to change it. I think there's serious question marks about PSG after that. Does he have the right squad for the type of football he's trying to play? Minus 500 for Ligue they are with Bet Rivers right now to win Ligue. I mean, that looks, I'm not saying they probably will still win it, but you wouldn't have me putting a cent on that, James.
No, me neither. I think that the thing about those odds, Steve, on the League One title race, it's the same thing we had pre-season, actually. If there was anyone other than PSG that you could back, just anyone else as one bet, then you'd be quite interested, wouldn't you? I think the issue with League One is that PSG obviously are still favourites. They deserve to still be favourites. They probably will still win it. But the issue really, I think, is which of the teams behind them would you actually pick out to win it if they don't? And that's what I'm finding tricky, because I think what we're going to see in League One this season is pretty much a blanket finish behind PSG. I think there's a lot of teams who, there's not a lot between them. If you think of Monaco, who are second favourites at the moment, I think they're plus 1,200 to win League One. They'll be attracting attention. I really like Nice just because of the odds. I think they've got a really good starting 11. And they're not in Europe, so they should be relatively fresh, especially in what is going to be a 34-game League One season. So Rennes, I don't think, can be discounted either. The question really is, which of those teams would you back to win it if PSG don't? So I'm the same as you. I wouldn't touch PSG to win the league at minus 500. They start to come in a bit more, minus 200, minus one, minus 150, something like that. They might become interesting then. But at the moment, there's just no reason to do it because they are still favourites. They probably will still win it, but there's no attraction in backing PSG at the moment in that outright market.
No, and the problem is always identifying the team that's most likely to challenge them to win this division. And there will be one that eventually comes out of that pack. It could be Monaco, it could be Marseille, it could be Nice, or even someone else. We don't know at this point in time, though. It's difficult to say. But in general, from the betting perspective, it's mad, really, isn't it? Because after the Marseille victory, I think all of us were thinking this PSG side are just starting to get going under Luis Enrique. They're a team who want to get on side probably until Christmas. And now it's like the opposite. You sort of, would you advise sort of bettors out there to be very, very cautious now with PSG in the next sort of 3-4 weeks?
Yeah, very much so. I think they've been a difficult read on the markets as well, because actually I think they've been undervalued on the handicap a few times. There have been a few games like the Marseille game, Steve. They're at home to a Marseille team who at the time, only a couple of weeks ago, had a lot of problems off the pitch. PSG were -1 on the Asian handicap at home. Yeah. You could back PSG to win at home, -1 on the Asian handicap. We never saw that at all last season. So, paradoxically, they have actually been quite good value on the handicap sometimes. I think one thing to say about this PSG team, you mentioned about the fact that there's very few players in the Newcastle side you'd expect to get in the PSG team. I think that is true. I think if you take the footballing side of it away, what they've tried to do is build a squad of players who get along really well at PSG. We know they've had issues in the past with Neymar and Mbappe potentially not getting on that well. They do have a squad of players there who do, it seems, get on really well. There's a bulk of players from the France squad who are there now. So I think that's something that gives me optimism that long-term they might be all right. I don't think we'll see the sort of squabbles and falling out in the squad that we've seen in the past. But right now, I think going through this international break and maybe even through to the next one in November, I would very much take a watching brief on PSG rather than getting too stuck into their matches, either for them or against them. Because at the moment, I don't think we quite know what we're dealing with here.
They have drifted out to plus 1,600 now to win the Champions League. And, before the Newcastle game, I was kind of all over them. I think they were plus 1,200 and they looked a good thing. But that match has completely thrown me. Like we said, they're probably the two players that you would get in the PSG side from the Newcastle team would have actually been probably Alexander Isak instead of perhaps Gonçalo Ramos. And ironically, Warren Zaire-Emery, who actually had the best game out of all of the PSG players at St. James's Park, would probably, I don't know, Bruno Guimaraes or someone like that. It's truly baffling, and that just makes me really concerned about their mentality overall. But plus 1,600 for the Champions League, yay or nay?
Not for me, I've got to say. I regret to say it as well. I would, I'm not a PSG fan, but I would like to see French teams do well in Europe. I wouldn't be backing them. I wouldn't be backing them this season.
I don't think after that performance and result, I can't be backing them because there's, that obviously it's a tough place to go, but there's several other tough places to go in Europe, and if they can't handle that, it doesn't give much confidence going futures ahead. League One overall then, James, we've talked about the top of the table. At the bottom of the table, Lyon are still inside the drop zone, still winless, 17th position. Clermont are behind them. We don't know what's going to happen with the ratifications of that Montpellier game. Could Lyon get relegated this season?
Could Lyon get relegated? I don't think they will. No, I would say no to that. I think over the 34 matches, I do believe they'll have enough to get out of trouble. I know you're thinking about them being relegated, Steve. I think they'll be okay. I think they could finish bottom half, which, let's be honest, for a club of Lyon's size, it would be a disaster anyway. This is a team who, let's not forget, not that long ago, used to get into Europe without even trying year after year after year. So a bottom half finish would be a disaster. I think that will happen. I think they'll finish in the bottom half. But I think they will just have enough quality to make sure they avoid relegation. Because if you look at the squad, if you look at the team, it isn't great. There's been a lot of criticism of the lack of quality in certain positions. They're obviously banned, essentially, effectively, from buying players at certain times over the summer because of financial problems. But they do still have a squad and a team that should stay out of trouble. So it's a no for me. I wouldn't be backing Lyon to go down, even though they're in trouble. Looking at the relegation market as it stands, Steve, to be honest, the teams I would back to go down are the teams who've just come up. I'll be backing Metz and Le Havre to go straight back down. Now, it might be that one of them doesn't and one of them does, but you can get both Metz and Le Havre at the moment to be relegated at plus money. I think Metz are plus 137 to go down, and Le Havre plus 125 to go down. So if you back them both, as long as one of them goes down, then you're going to make a profit. And for me, that would be the bet in the League One relegation market, because what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, both having made good starts, they're starting to look now like weak bottom six teams. Really, I think the fact they didn't strengthen over the summer in most positions after coming up is starting to tell now. I thought Le Havre were poor today. I thought in losing to Marseille, I thought they were poor against Lille last week when they lost. That's 2 defeats to 0 for Le Havre, and Metz don't have a lot of quality either. So in that relegation market, they'd be the picks for me at the moment. I'd be quite keen actually to back them while they're odds against, because I don't think they're going to be odds against for very long.
Lons have absolutely come out of the trap second half here. I still love this potential in running on them on the Asian handicap minus 0.25 at minus 105 now. I'd be shocked if they lost the second half. Let's just say that. And I think probably a good, correct score at this stage would be the 1-1 draw. Exactly. The goal line in the Arsenal game at halftime is 1.25. Which might tempt a few in. I don't know if you've had your eye on this fixture, James, or not. Arsenal 220 plus 225, the draw at plus 140, Man City plus 187. If you had a free $10 bet, where would it go on the over or under for this game?
It would go on the unders on that game, Steve. I think that, as I've said, my view on this game is I think City will be quite happy to keep it relatively tight, come away, avoiding defeat and maintain the supremacy over Arsenal at the top of the table. So I'd be going unders on that match.
Does feel like 1-1 might be the most, the highest potential scoring score in that second half, and 0-0 might be in play as well. I actually quite like I liked the overs pre-match, Arsenal Man City. I didn't actually back anything. I think I kind of forgot. I was so focused on what was going on around the globe. Will White said under 2.5 was actually smashed pre-game. At the minute, they're looking very good, aren't they? There's not really been many clear-cut chances from open players, such just mistakes that have done it. Going back to this relegation in Ligue, I'm with you. Le Havre, I actually had them as one of my hot dog picks 2 weeks ago against Lille, and that was one of the worst picks I've had all season. They were terrible in that game. I think they had one shot on target, and it was a favourable spot as well. Lille had just lost in midweek. Today, they look toothless. And Metz as well. We know they've got, those two sides have got a really weak squad. Clermont probably the only other really weak squad in the league. And I fell into this trap this season in Sweden, the Swedish league. I actually backed IFK Gothenburg to go down mid-season, and they've come back and it looks like they're going to be fine now. And what I forgot was how poor the teams around them are, and I think that's going to be the same in France. Lyon are lucky that there's 4 or 5 really poor teams down there, and ultimately, if they can't finish above them, they've got serious problems, haven't they, James?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think there will be teams weaker than Lyon. I think they're going to have a terrible season. I think by the standards that they've set in the past and the expectations of the fans, though, it's going to be a disaster for Lyon. But I do think there'll be a couple of sides weaker. And I think looking at the bottom, Clermont are the side who, along with the promoted teams, do look the worst. I think those 3 are a pretty good shout, actually, to be the bottom 3. But at the moment, Clermont are actually the favourites, I think, with Bet Rivers to be relegated. So I'd avoid them because I think there's just as much chance of Metz and Le Havre going down. And I'd much rather be on the plus money on those two than the odds against and on Clermont being relegated.
We're going to switch to the Premier League and the usual section each week with all my guests. Probably unfair to talk about the title race and odds with this match in play, although Spurs might interest a few at 14-1 now. Even I was getting those sort of thoughts yesterday. Put me in a right frame of mind, James. Spurs can't possibly win the league, can they?
No, I don't think they can.
There you go. But in the top 4 market, right? Spurs plus 125 to finish in the top 4. I still think that is tremendous value. They're doing that. This Orange Ball thing is impressing me, James.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'm quite tempted by that price as well. So my view on the top four market in the Premier League, obviously one team is guaranteed to be in the top four, which is Man City. I know nobody's guaranteed, but they are, aren't they? And then for me, if you look at who are the other three teams going to be, I think there are four strong contenders in Arsenal, obviously, Liverpool, I think, and then Tottenham, and also I think Newcastle, who are lagging behind, but I think have got enough quality to catch up. Now, at the moment, among those four contenders, Tottenham and Newcastle are odds against. And I think, Tottenham, given the points they've got on the board, plus 125. I suppose the question becomes, when you're looking at a market like this, top four, well, why wouldn't you back them? Who would be the four teams to get in there if not Tottenham? And when you look at it that way, the odds against, I think, starts to look like a really good opportunity because, they're not showing any signs of the football they're playing or the results they're getting diminishing at the moment. They've got great momentum. And, if you look at Arsenal, minus 400 for the same market, Tottenham plus 125, which of the two would you want to be on at the moment? It's got to be Tottenham, I think, at those odds.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the value isn't there. If you want to be back in Liverpool and Arsenal, they should get in the top four, but it's crazy minus money, really. I mean, I watched Liverpool today, and the defense is just not holding up for me in the big games enough. They're too wide open. They give too many chances away. Newcastle are an interesting one because of all the teams, they can probably strengthen the most in the January transfer window. They've got the money. They can probably bring someone if they need certain spots. And if you do like Newcastle, then this is probably not a bad time for them to get on side. Another area we're going to talk about, and it's getting very interesting now, is the sack race. Next manager I think the official term is to leave his post in the Premier League. This is now a very nervous time for managers, not just in the Premier League, but around Europe. The October international break, I think, historically has a high percentage of casualties in terms of sackings. Monday morning, it's a good time to replace your manager. You've got 2 weeks to look for a new man or appoint someone new. Who do you fear for in the Premier League? Heckingbottom, I think, is still the favourite. But Andoni Iraola, we have this conversation each week. The Bournemouth manager, a terrible result yesterday. Is he vulnerable, do you think, James?
Yeah, I think he is vulnerable, Steve. I think Heckingbottom is the obvious choice because Sheffield United are struggling. Obviously, only got 1 point on the board at the moment. And actually, if you look at the odds in this market, he's way away from the rest. He's cut adrift, really, at the bottom. He's Heckingbottom. He's odds on. So he's a runaway favourite to be the next manager to lose his post. Then you've got a gap in the odds. Then it's pretty much one of two. It's either Iraola at Bournemouth or Erik ten Hag at Manchester United, who I don't think will lose his job. I think Manchester United are going to stick with him.
They won't get rid of him, will they? Not this.
They won't get rid of him. Obviously the win against Brentford is going to help, but I don't think they would have got rid of him anyway. So I think really Heckingbottom, yes, it's a good shout, but there's no real value in his price. I think Iraola at Bournemouth would be the one I'd look at because I think if you look at the other teams down there, Steve, there's very good reasons why they wouldn't lose their jobs, the managers in charge. I don't think Vincent Kompany's in trouble, for example. And Luton are doing better points-wise, really, than people were predicting. So there's no danger there either. I think, really, when you work your way through the bottom 6 or 7 teams in the Premier League, Iraola is the one who stands out. So at the moment, if you're looking for a bet in this market, he would be the pick.
Heckingbottom is minus 150, but he was as short as minus 300 last week. So he has actually drifted. I've got a feeling that it's not a case of they like Heckingbottom. It's just I don't think they can really... No one wants that job. Really, who would want to come to Sheffield United right now? That's a candidate they enjoy. Iraola, Nigel Seeley flagged him up last week at 14-1. He's now as short as plus 650, plus 200 with one bookmaker in the UK. So
sorry, Steve. That's a great shout from Nigel because to see that coming. I mean, 14-1 looks too big now, but it's one thing to say that; it's another to flag it up. And I think, it's the sort of club where, we know they've made changes in the past, various levels there in terms of squad and managerial positions. And he doesn't really have the pedigree or the long-term history that's going to, someone like an Ancelotti's always had, or somebody like that who's coming to the Premier League and had bad results. So he doesn't really have that protection. it's a vulnerable position to be in, really. And I think that's one of the factors when you're looking at this market to take into account, because I think there's other managers, as I say, at teams who aren't necessarily doing well, who do have that protection and probably will keep their jobs.
I saw highlights of Bournemouth yesterday, and he's trying to play a style of football which isn't going to work with the players that he's got at Bournemouth, and it's not going to work in the Premier League. Simple as that. And I might have known that because he was on Victor Orta's shortlist at Leeds, of course, when we sacked Jesse Marsh, and pretty much everyone on that shortlist of Victor Orta's has been pretty useless in the last couple of years. So I might have known it might not work out for him. I've got a feeling they'll give him until the November international window, and then I think they've got a big decision to make there. But two managers I'm keeping my eye out, not necessarily for next out, but I think Marco Silva at 33-1, he's been continually linked with a move to Saudi Arabia at some point. Might be very hard for him to turn down the big bucks there. And I'll tell you what, Vincent Kompany at 20-1, I could see him as the sort of bloke who might walk out on them if things just don't go the way he wants. He has high ambitions in management.
Yeah,
and he might be better off cutting himself free of that at some point, because they haven't been as good as a lot expected. So I'm keeping my tabs on those two managers, James. What do you think about
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you make about looking at it the other way. Rather than being sacked, do they get a better offer? You know, if the market is simply who's going to be next to leave his post, then that's important, because, you know, there are some managers who are maybe not doing a great job in terms of points totals at the teams they're at the moment in the Premier League, but they do have great credentials. Kompany would obviously be one of those, massive profile and highly regarded. So yeah, again, it comes then down to would he do that in the middle of a season? We don't know. But yeah, if a big job comes up for a manager like him or Marco Silva, with an opportunity to earn a lot more money or take on a new challenge, then it can also work that way, where it's more the manager's choice than the club.
Moving on to La Liga. And the outright market at the moment has Real Madrid at -112, Barcelona at +120. It's probably going to be like this for most of the season. It feels like it's going to be a really close title race there in Spain. But one man we have to talk about is, again, Jude Bellingham. And first, I want to give a shout out to our Spanish handicapper, Rui Barlow, who has cashed already with an outright pick he gave in the preview show back in August. Jude Bellingham over 6.5 league goals. He's already netted 8 times. So his role at Real has completely revolutionized him. I mean, Jude, but you've got a vast history in scouting and stuff, James, and you know, what level is Bellingham at now, and what sort of level can he become? Because I mean, I see him as definitely a future Ballon d'Or winner, probably multiple winner of that award.
Yeah, I think he is that level. Going back to the scouting, I actually saw Jude Bellingham play for England under-16s against France under-16s, going back 4 or 5 years now. It was a game, it's an annual fixture pretty much. Those two countries play each other under-16 level every year. Every single year prior to the Bellingham game, France had been way better than England at under-16 level. And as an Englishman watching it, I used to get lots of ribbing from the French agents and scouts about how bad we were. Then Jude Bellingham turned up and he played the French off the park in that game. And everyone was like, who the hell is this kid? And then they saw he played for Birmingham City and they were like, why is he playing for Birmingham City? So I think point there being right from that age, and even before that, Bellingham has been picked out as something special. What he's doing at Real Madrid, though, I have to say, surpasses my expectations, because it's just come so early and so quickly. And he's essentially doing it in a new position. I mean, great shout from Rui Barlow. On the preseason show, he said that Ancelotti wants to play Bellingham as a number 10 and get in the box. And that's why Rui picked him out on the goal-scoring market to get over 6.5 goals. But the fact he's done it this quickly and this early in his career at the biggest football club in the world is just unbelievable. 8 goals in 8 games, 10 goals in 10 games if you include the Champions League. It's incredible. I think we're looking at somebody here who has a potential to be the best midfielder in the world, to be the best player in the world. And, you know, it's silly to say he will win a Ballon d'Or, but, you know, he should be at Real Madrid probably for the next 10 years or so. He's at a club that's going to be at the top, competing for the major trophies. It would almost be a surprise, wouldn't it, if he's not top 2, top 3 in the Ballon d'Or rankings more than once. So absolutely exceptional talent, and clearly an extremely mature young man, because he's walked into Real Madrid and he's become their best player in the first 3 or 4 months. It's really, really something special to watch here. And he's a fantastic player. I was saying to you just before we started, Steve, I think really what he's done and what Real Madrid have done is they've actually laid down a challenge to England now, because what they've done, they're fashioning a world-class footballer for England. And I think the challenge now for Gareth Southgate and England is, what do we do with him? How do we get the best out of him? Because, England have got a player here they can build their team around for maybe 8 or 9 years. It gives them a great opportunity to win a major trophy. So it'll be very interesting to see what Southgate and England do with him tactically over the next 6 or 12 months. We've got internationals this month. I think England have got 2 games, haven't they? They're playing Australia, and then they've got a qualifier against Italy. So, let's see what they do with Bellingham, because, Real Madrid are fashioning a really, really special footballer here for them.
Yeah, and a shout out, actually. We've got 2 international preview shows coming your way this particular week. And me and James are actually recording tomorrow. And I do believe Daniele Fisichella is going to be on the second show later in the week with myself. Dan Roebuck, of course, in charge. And Bellingham is very exciting. The only question on my mind is, over or under 2.5 World Cups that England win in the next. But England really should win something with this generation that's coming through, spearheaded by Jude. There's actually quite a lot of really good talent coming through the English ranks in that sort of 17 to 21 age range at this point in time. I really do think it could be a golden era again upcoming.
It could, Steve. If you actually look at the outright betting, I know we haven't finished the qualifiers yet for Euro 24, but if you look at the outright betting with most bookmakers, England and France are clear favourites to win that trophy next summer in Germany. And to me, honestly, that makes perfect sense, because the way that they are doing the youth academies at the moment, both countries, sets them apart. There's so much talent coming through in both countries. It used to just be France, of course. England have caught up a great deal over the last 10 years, and Bellingham's a product of that. So, in the outright markets, even now, prior to the qualifying being finished, I think personally it's very hard to look past those 2 countries to win the tournament next summer, because for me, they're clearly the best 2.
I'd agree with you, certainly, in that respect. In Bellingham, obviously one of the main reasons why. Before we finish the show, we're going to talk about the Bundesliga. And I said on the preview show this week, goal for Lens. They've equalised against Lille. It's come. Oh, yes. It has been coming. It's a header from, I can't even see, because they're just absolutely
mobbing him.
It's surrounding him in celebrations. But that goal was coming. Brice Samba celebrates in goal for Lens. 1-1. That will do me if it stays that way, James. They're probably the most likely team to go on and win from there. I don't think there'll be a VR chat. David Machado with the equaliser for Lens. Second half has kicked off at the Emirates, 0-0. Arsenal against Manchester City. But onto the Bundesliga. I was saying on the preview show this week, this is the league to watch right now. If you want goals, I think 12 of the 16 teams, 14 of the 18 teams are averaging 4 goals per game, which is astronomical. Now, it probably can't continue, but I've been making a killing in that league recently. Goals everywhere. And I got a question. Someone actually messaged me, a friend of mine yesterday, and said, Steve, are Stuttgart legitimate? And it was this is probably someone who doesn't really know much about the league, but Stuttgart are going incredibly well. They were top of the league before today. I think Leverkusen have regained top spot. 80-1 with Bet Rivers VfB Stuttgart to win the Bundesliga. But the big story here isn't necessarily the club. It's a player. It's a striker, Serhou Guirassy, who someone that both me and you are very familiar with, James. We were talking off air about, remember him coming through at Laval, a small team who are actually doing quite well in Ligue 2 this year. But he's broke records. I think he's something like 14 league goals already, or something ridiculous. I need to check the stats. But Serhou Guirassy, did you see this one coming? Former Rennes player, former Lille player. What do you make of him?
Yeah, I don't follow the Bundesliga as closely as you at all, Steve. So I bow to your knowledge on the title race. But yeah, Serhou Guirassy all over the social media at the moment. I think he's on 13 goals, is it, for Stuttgart? No, I did not see this coming. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see it lasting either. I think he's obviously doing really, really well at the moment. And I think a lot of punters and bettors will be thinking, is this the player to back in the Bundesliga Golden Boot race? My advice would be no. I don't think he is, because for me, he's got to 27 years old as Guirassy without really ever having a great season anywhere. We both saw him at Lille, where he didn't do particularly well. He was on loan at Amiens, wasn't he, at one point? And he was at Rennes, where he never really did anything special. I think he got 11 goals in Germany with Stuttgart last season. So I think the question you have to ask when a player comes out of nowhere, as it were, like this and scores goals, is he a late developer, or is this just a purple patch? Is he having a good run of games? And I think in the case of Guirassy, it's that. He's having a good run of games. So he's having a fantastic period of goals. He might well get up to 20 goals this season. You've got to say that if he's got 13 on the ball at the moment. But I don't think it makes him a great striker. I think he's having a great time at the moment. And if you look at the odds with BetRivers, Harry Kane is still very short odds to win the Golden Boot, even though he's only got 8 goals and Guirassy's on 13. I would still be backing Harry Kane because I think over the course of a season, Harry Kane will outscore Guirassy. So, yeah, hats off to him and how he's playing at the moment. But I personally, knowing him as I do, having watched a lot of him in France, I don't see this lasting. I don't know about you, Steve, but that's my view on him.
I think the logical answer is it's a purple patch. It certainly helps. He's managed to muscle his way into penalty taking duty. And there's an awful lot of penalties that seem to be given in the Bundesliga. I don't know what the threshold is there, or defensive disasters. But Kane with BetRivers minus 360, Guirassy plus 400. A player who actually, I wouldn't back either of them. I would actually be looking at Victor Boniface at Bayer Leverkusen at 12-1. He's only 2 goals behind Kane. And I do think that Leverkusen, I think they're going to finish second this year behind Bayern Munich myself. I think they've got a fantastic manager, fantastic offensive threat. If Kane stays fit, he'll win the Golden Boot. But, he always gets an injury at some point, usually every season. And will they rest him if they go deep in the Champions League? So, yeah, in terms of Kane against Guirassy, though, I think at this point in time, Stuttgart are getting a bit overrated, and Guirassy, it has to end. This purple patch at some stage has to end. He's been a bit of a journeyman. It hasn't really happened, but it's a great story, isn't it? I mean, it's nice to see someone like this do well, who's kind of not failed before, but he's been inconsistent before.
And you do have this, if you look back in the history books at like the final standings in the Golden Boot races, you see players and they just have that one season, don't they, or 2 seasons where they get a lot of goals. And I personally think that's what's happening for Guirassy. There's going to be a lot of focus on him now. There'll be talk about whether he's going to get a big move to the Premier League or something like that. I think anybody doing their research would be, cautious about that sort of thing. But he's obviously in fantastic form. So well done to him for the moment, really.
And in terms of Stuttgart, I wouldn't. They're not going to be a Leicester City story for those who are interested. 80-1. They're that price for a reason. They were, I think, 3rd or 4th favourites to be relegated this season. They are playing good football, but they're actually the sort of team that I'm looking to be betting against in the next few weeks because they're now entering what I call overrated territory. Bayern Munich are very much deserving minus 500 favourites still to win the Bundesliga. I think they've won today or were winning today. Comfortably last time I looked, and they're a heck of a team. So still goalless at the Emirates Stadium between Arsenal and Man City. I think I'm with you, James. At this point in time, I'll be looking to finish to back on the unders, under 1 goal. Not often I like to back an under 1, but it's hard to see more than 1 goal now in this game. Lens 1, Lille 1, and as Will White did say there, that certainly was a cheer from me for a man who was backing them in the second half. So, Shane, we're about gone. I just want to give a plug in to the At Because We Win Instagram account. Now, we were involved in a parlay this week that all our European experts did. Mine and yours part came in, no problem, James. We were let down by RJ, unfortunately, although he did have the biggest price, I think, of a lot of them. He was actually let down by Olivier Giroud, who saved a late...
yes.
Did you see that for AC
I
Milan?
did. The new AC Milan goalkeeper.
Yeah, the new AC Milan goal. They put him on their Twitter page, haven't they? I'm just trying to find the link for this because we win account. I'm going to put it on the chat. Like I say, do give this account a follow because there is exclusive content from several of the handicappers on this account. So if you don't follow it, do. I'm not an Instagram expert at all. I'm in TikTok. We talked about this before. I mean, that'll be next, won't it, James? yeah, for those who do like their Instagram, then do get following. They got the correct score predictions for the Premier League as well. Nigel and Jack, they've actually been hitting those, quite a lot of those recently. So do join in, and do watch out for the shows this week on because we win tennis content and international soccer content. Myself and James, like I say, will be on that first show. Don't know who you're eyeing up, James. Maybe a bet on San Marino or someone like that. We shall find out when we're doing it. But it's been a pleasure doing it with you today, and I'm glad that there was no technical hiccups this time.
Yeah, well, great to be back, Steve, and always good to talk League One and all the other leagues with you. So yeah, looking forward to the international show with you as well.
Have a great day, everyone, wherever you are based. Enjoy the NFL, which is going to be kicking off soon. And remember, do gamble responsibly. So take care, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.